When the show started, the Delhi High Court has directed the government to withdraw 2 coal blocks of Jspl from the auction. We've got both ASHMIT and Nigel here with us. ASHMIT to talk us through what the Delhi High Court has said, and Nigel to give us some impact analysis. ASHMIT, if you can hear me, could you give us any more details that you may have of why the Delhi High Court said so? What kind of precedent does this set, if at all?
Well, we only have preliminary details right now. We're yet to get a final copy of the order, but what we have been able to gather so far is that relief coming in for JSPL, the Delhi High Court has held that in light of the arguments submitted by the Attorney General as well as by JSPL, it is of the opinion that there is a pressing issue here and that the issue needs to be probed further, and towards that end has instructed the government to withdraw these 2 coal blocks in question. One is Utkal B1, the other one is Gare Palma 4/6. Both these blocks will be withdrawn from the auction, and that the government has also been directed for the government-appointed technical committee to review the assignment of the end use as far as these blocks are concerned. Now, just to give some perspective to our viewers, the government, by way of a notification, had assigned end use to various coal blocks. Amongst them was also Utkal B1 and Gare Palma. These blocks were traditionally being used by JSPL for furnishing coal as far as their end use steel plant was concerned. But for both these blocks, amongst others, their end use was changed to power, which in a way disqualified as far as JSPL is concerned from bidding with respect to its steel plant. So a major concern being expressed by JSPL.
But is that the ground on which the Delhi High Court, ASHMIT, has said you must withdraw these 2 coal blocks from the auction? Or I'm trying to understand what precedent it sets, because this will give, in some sense, this will arm a bunch of other companies that are not very happy with the auctions or not very happy with the categorization of blocks to also approach the court for more. In fact, we have a flash running saying 2 other companies, Bhushan and Soba, have also put in similar pleas.
Well, indeed, you've hit the nail right on the head. In fact, that was also one of the major concerns that was echoed by the Attorney General, arguing that if any relief is granted, that would, in fact, lead to a flood of litigation. We already have seen earlier this morning Bhushan Steel filing a similar petition along these lines. There's another pending case by Sova Ispat. Also, other companies which haven't taken legal recourse so far were watching these cases very carefully. So clearly this holds signals for across various players across the sector, so that this will definitely have legal implications. Of course, once we have a final copy of the order, we will be able to appreciate the finer nuances. But for now, on account of JSPL's arguments, definitely relief with these 2 coal blocks now being exempted from the auctions. And the
government will go to the Supreme Court to appeal this? Do we know anything from the Attorney General's office?
We're reaching out to various government officials.
Because this could potentially derail the auction. Therefore, I'm asking. And, I think a lot of hopes are pinned on that auction. Not just hopes. It's part of the Supreme Court's sort of order that lays down the deadlines for the auction and the reallocation to take place. So,
indeed, initial comments on reaching out, we understand that the government itself is looking for a detailed copy of the order to be able to assess the various factors at play. But one does get the sense that given the implications that this is likely to have, Supreme Court will be the next legal recourse. Of course, we're yet to get a confirmation, but all signs do point towards it as of now.
Okay, stay on that story. And as soon as you hear something, ASHMIT, do let us know, because this will be of great interest to the market as well as the bunch of companies involved. Let's get some impact analysis very quickly from Nigel. Nigel, this is definitely good news for JSPL, but it's bad news for the auction, I would imagine, right?
Actually, Menka, I've been speaking to a few industry experts, and they say that it doesn't change anything with regard to the auction. Okay. It changes things only with regard to these 2 coal blocks. So these 2 coal blocks, that's the best case scenario for JSPL that's played out.
How valuable are these 2 coal blocks in terms of how many companies are keen to be able to get their hands on these 2? You've been to Gare Palma, haven't you?
Yes, yes, Menka, I've been to Gare Palma, but importantly, this is a different coal block. This is Gare Palma, I think 6, if I'm not mistaken. So let's not mix up the Gare Palma coal blocks of JSPL that were already producing coal. These are the ones that, in fact, both these 2 coal blocks, that's the Utkal B1 as well as the Gare Palma 6, if I'm not mistaken, both these 2 coal blocks, they were going to help JSPL steel plant. That's the Angul steel plant, which they've already invested.
And they've been categorized in the power coal auction, isn't that right?
Exactly. So
I know. Something, but it may not block the auction in itself, but it takes 2 big blocks away from that power coal auction, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So for power companies that were hoping to bid and may have already expressed interest, because those expressions of interest have already come in from what we understand, these 2 blocks are no longer available.
That's right. So that would not be a very good thing for the power companies. But also, I'll say to watch out for Hindalco. Remember now, Hindalco has their Talavera 2 coal block, which they were getting coal from there. That's the same case for there, because that coal block as well has been reserved now for the power sector. Now, if in case JSPL is getting some something JSPL is getting a stay with regard to these two coal blocks going to the auction. Maybe Hindalco as well, you know, that Talabira 2 coal block, that's the sense that I'm getting from various voices that I just spoke to. So they are saying that watch out for that particular company as well, because they as well can appeal and they'll say, why should this coal block go into the auction? And we know that in fact all these coal blocks, all these companies, they were arguing that so many coal blocks have been given to the power sector. Now JSPL is the first case when in fact they are getting some kind of a sentimental relief, Menka. We need to remember that both these two coal blocks were not producing any coal till now, but they were going to support the 20,000 crore expansion plan that will come on.
I think it's the principle of it, Nigel. It's not about the operationality of it. It's the principle of it. If JSPL has managed to get relief, like you pointed out, several other petitioners, including even future potential petitioners like Hindalco, may get some relief, or at least the hopes are up that they could get some relief.
Exactly. The hopes are up for Hindalco as well as Sesa Sterlite. Those are the two names that come to mind.
So if more blocks are taken out of the power category and had to, you know, sort of reserved for these companies or moved elsewhere, then the power block auction then, you know, is at some peril. Some peril. I'm not saying it's going to get blocked, but it's at some peril in that sense.
Indeed. That's what we can drive with the details that we have at this point of time.
All right, fair enough. Nigel, if as soon as you hear more, do let us know. That's the developing story at this point in time. The Delhi High Court giving JSPL some relief, and we'll be waiting to see what this means for the auctions themselves and also for other companies who may want certain blocks removed from different categorizations. We're going to get back to that story we've been tracking since the top of the show, which is the Delhi High Court order that went in favor of JSPL. For those of you who may have just joined in, JSPL has managed to get some relief from the Delhi High Court. 2 blocks that it was opposed to in terms of the transfer of these 2 blocks to the power coal auction. The Delhi High Court has given them some relief and said that these 2 blocks will, as of now, be not auctioned as part of those coal blocks that are available to power companies to bid for. If that makes any sense to you, slightly complex. We've got Nigel with us because he's been tracking that story to analyze it. But we also have with us G.D. Mundra, the Director of Sarda Energy and Minerals, joining us on the phone line. Now, just to be clear, Mr. Mundra has lost a coal block in the deallocation process that has taken place. This was for his steel plant and will be able to bid for this coal block because it continues to be categorized in terms of end use as for steel. Mr. Mundra, yet you have a comment on the victory that JSPL has had in the Delhi High Court today. What do you make of it?
No, what I can make out is what the High Court wants or what the court wants is the prior allottees should be given an opportunity of submitting a bid for their own mine. Because based on those mines, they have already set up an end-use plant, they have created employment, they have already committed financially. So those on the block on the basis of which they had built all these things, at least they should be given an opportunity to bid for those blocks. So that is the basic logic, and similar is the case for others like Hindalco and Bhushan Steel also. And if you see, the intention of the ordinance when it came after this High Court judgment in September, the ordinance came in October, the government intention was very clear that the bid will be a sectoral bid. Means steel will have to fight with steel, cement will have to fight with cement, and other smelter, this aluminum smelter for captive power plant will have to fight among themselves. But when the approach paper came somewhere in December, they have changed it to regulated and non-regulated. So what has happened in the process, whatever mines, like our mines, it was reserved for iron steel. We are in iron steel and captive power. And similarly, other steel plants, they had the end-use plant linked to their mines. And all those mines now put for the category which is non-regulated. So now steel plant will have to fight with cement plant, and they will have to fight with aluminum smelter for their captive power plant requirement. So essentially what will happen, the steel plants or steel companies which have been suffering last 4 years because of recession, their balance sheet is not as strong as the cement and aluminum companies' balance sheets. Their purchasing power is quite different from their purchasing power. So there is no level playing field for a steel company. So I think the government will have to change that also and allow steel company to bid and compete with the steel, cement to cement. So I think the government need to change the approach and from non-regulated, regulated,
Okay, Mr. Mundra, let me put the question to you this way. I don't know what the Delhi High Court order says because we don't have the full order with us. What we do know is that as of now, these two blocks will not be part of the power end-use auction, and that the Delhi High Court has directed a government-appointed committee to review the allocation of end-use. Do you think that this decision by the Delhi High Court will encourage several more companies, even like yours, who are unhappy with having to compete with cement, to approach the courts and ask for a review of this end-use process? This may impact or delay the entire auction.
It looks like, because what the court ultimately wants, because you already set up end-use plant based on a particular mine which is allocated to you, though it is termed the all allocation as illegal by the court, but the illegal process was done by the government, not by the innocent allocatees or innocent companies who have believed on this process and they have gone ahead by setting up the end-use plant.
But Mr. Mundra, it cannot be the government's need or requirement to make it easy for you to bid. The government is following Supreme Court directives and opening up the sector and making it more competitive in the spirit of natural resource allocation. So I'm just wondering, your request that steel plants should have to compete only with steel and cement should have to compete only with cement, is that something you are likely to take to court now, encouraged by this Delhi High Court decision in favor of Jspl?
I think we are examining those things also, and it will encourage certainly us, if you are given a right legal advice, we may go in take the all legal recourse for that.
So this Jspl decision encourages you to do that. That's what I'm asking.
It certainly encourages us. It can compel us to think in those lines and compel, because you will appreciate we are neither given right of first refusal.
Right.
You already set up everything, and you will see that when the government.
But sir, right of first refusal is not something that the government is obliged to give you, sir.
No, but one you will appreciate in Mining and Mineral Development Regulation Act, when the amendment has come, where the government is putting up all the other minerals for auction, they are giving first right of refusal to existing mine owner.
Right.
And their lease expiring, because they also know they already have the end-use plant linked to those things. Employment is created, financial commitment is made to take care of all those things. They are already giving right of first refusal to in that case. So why not the same thing they apply for the coal block also?
Right. Mr. Mundra, I wanted to ask you this one thing. For your particular coal block that's going to be up for auction, the highest number of bids were received. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, more than 10 bids were received. Now, you're talking about a level playing field and the likes. Do you believe that, in fact, this could could remove some part of that competition if this goes ahead?
Yeah, certainly. If sectoral bidding is made, there will be a level playing field.
Right.
There will not be an unhealthy competition.
Nigel, that's exactly Mr. Mundra's concern, that I have to compete with 10 other bidders or 15 other bidders from a variety of different industries, whereas I want to be able to compete only with steel and let cement compete only with cement. So why are you changing the end use of these blocks?
Right, so that's what I'm trying to ask Mr. Mundra if he's aware about what's the competition that's coming in, because his coal block is the most viable, it is the most underutilized coal block till date. So I'm just asking him if he has a sense.
Which is why he feels the loss that much more sharply.
Right. All right, Mr. Mundra, do you believe that this could derail the entire process? The entire auction process, or do you think it's strictly reserved to these two?
Because by 31st March, all running blocks, the government will have to hand over to the successful bidder. Any delay, because the government is having very tight schedule. As per the existing schedule, by the end of March, I think they will be able to hand over the mine to the new allottees or successful bidder. So any delay in that, I think, will certainly have potential to jeopardize or substantially delay the whole process.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.